What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is Friday, April 13th. This is the Fantasy Football Fanatics Podcast, the official podcast of thefantasyfootballfanatics.com. I am your host, Griffin Palmer. As you probably noticed by the lack of intro music and the less than stellar audio, I am not back in the studio as of yet, still on location shooting. But it's Friday, guys, so you're due a show, so dang it, I'm going to give you a show. So CJ and Jason should be back for Monday's show. Tuesday's show. We record usually late Monday nights. So we should be back, and as we get into the wide receiver rankings. And today, of course, as you know by the title, we're going to be diving deeper into our early consensus running back rankings, getting through part two, your running back twos. And yes, I know we're not getting all the guys together for these. It's not super in-depth analysis, but the whole reason we're doing this right now, this early pre-draft rankings, is for all of you that are getting ready for your dynasty startups or your keeper league drafts. I know all of you are doing various things, best ball, you name it. So we wanted to make sure that we got you guys at least something to start with for sure. The guys will be back. We'll do some more in-depth analysis on the wide receivers as we normally do next week. If you want to get more information on these running backs, hey, comment down below. We're happy to talk about it. We're going to talk about it more with the guys later on. Definitely go more in depth on the Patreon show. So if you want to support the show, get yourself bonus content, head over to patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. And guys, we're going to be recapping these rankings really soon, post-draft, getting into more finalized rankings as things adjust, and we'll be deep diving more then as we learn more. Injuries, of course, are a concern. Players moving around, who's going to be signed to what teams. These are all questions that are yet to be answered for the most part. So we'll get there. But for today, of course, let's go ahead and power through. If you guys want to submit your questions, as always, remember, subscribe. We are a year-round podcast. You can reach us through Twitter. It's pretty easy, at the FF Fanatics. If you're on YouTube watching us right now, you can comment down below. You can follow the show on Facebook at facebook.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. Really, we're all over. Just give us a look. And, let's, with that, get to it. And we'll start with our top headlines from around the league, as we always do. A couple things to get to before we get to the rankings. And we'll start with the fact that the NFL preseason schedule has been announced. You're probably aware of this. Wanted to make sure you guys are all aware. The specifics are still upcoming, as of the time that they're going to be starting. But as of right now, you'll know who's playing who, where they'll be playing, what weeks they'll be playing them. So, go ahead and get a nice little look. Maybe start looking at maybe some travel options, getting some preseason games seen. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea because it is the preseason, and a lot of stadiums and teams will require you to pay full price admission to get in. But hey, it's football, and we get a little antsy here as fantasy football fans. We all know that. I mean, hell, if you're listening to a fantasy football podcast in April, you're probably a little bit football crazy like we are. Let's go to the quarterback position, where more reports are coming out that Cleveland Browns are expected to make quarterback Josh Allen their number one overall pick. Now, this time, these reports are coming out via NFL Network's Daniel Jeremiah. And just to reiterate, what do the Browns know that we don't? Because if you view almost anyone's rankings, he falls in the 3 to 5 range. I have not seen a single statistical breakdown of any college scout, any draft analysis specialist, anything, anywhere among these professions that are putting Josh Allen as the number one talent in this draft, especially the number one quarterback. So, not to say he can't do it, but there are things that I feel like are much, much safer picks. I mean, Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen are the ones I normally see as the 1-2, and I agree with those. I mean, arm talent galore, and I think you would see, Josh Allen, if he could, it's his throwing percentage, which is really low. Baker Mayfield is that one that could really be that number 3 if it wasn't for the off-the-field issues. And it's just a matter of which team is going to overlook that. I could see Josh Allen being the number 4 quarterback in this draft, honestly, if we're talking strictly talent. Yeah, he's got a cannon. He's got an amazing arm. He showed off at the Combine and at his pro day. But, I mean, guys, he has a 50%. It's in the 50s completion percentage. Not very good. He can't make all the throws. He's a project quarterback with a cannon. So to make him the number 1 overall pick, maybe the Browns see something we don't. I like Josh Allen. I just would not take him over definitely Sam Darnold or Josh Rosen, to be sure. Let's go ahead and go to the wide receiver position. And we'll start again at Cleveland, where the Cleveland Browns have paid Jarvis Landry an amazing 5-year extension worth $75 million. That is a $15 million per year contract, making him one of the highest paid wide receivers in the league. whoa, slot receivers making crazy money. And this is, of course, going to affect everything, trickle down effect, as we go through future years, including contracts with this next guy we're going to talk about, Odell Beckham Jr. Now, teams around the league are reportedly saying that they no longer believe that the New York Giants are looking to trade veteran. Well, he's a vet. Can you call him a veteran if he's still in his rookie contract? I mean, he's not a rookie. Well, star wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. How about that? So, I mean, not surprised here. The Giants would be crazy to trade him unless they got a king's ransom, and even then, this is a guy you can build your franchise around. So, I'm not surprised by this, and yeah. Odell Beckham stays at home, where we all kind of expected. Though this isn't final. I mean, this could very well be a draft day thing where he ends up getting traded or something else happens. So, I mean, obviously nothing's final until it is. And unless he gets a contract extension, I'm not really completely off the possibility. And even then, we've seen players get contracts just to solidify the deal, and then they'll trade them because they have more trading value now, because teams don't have to trade an arm and a leg to get the player and then sign them to a mega contract. So we'll see. Odell Beckham Jr., I don't think the saga is over, but I think it's definitely quieted down quite a bit. Next guy, though, things are about to get interesting. We'll go to Dallas, where there's reportedly a long-awaited meeting between Dallas Cowboys general manager Jerry Jones and wide receiver Dez Bryant happening today. Could be happening right now while you're listening. There is expected to be some finality coming from it. If you guys have been following the offseason at all or following our show, you probably know that Dez Bryant has not had the best couple of years, yet he's making really top wide receiver money, and the expectation is that they're going to ask him to take some sort of restructure or pay cut because the team is really close against the cap and they cannot make moves. They're losing pieces and they need to make additions and they can't do it, so they're trying to make some cap moves, and Dez Bryant has said he doesn't want to adjust his cap. So, or his contracts. So we'll see how this goes. By the time you're listening to this, you may know way more than I do at the time of this recording. Just a heads up, that's what we know as of now. And those are really the most fantasy relevant headlines that we had. So with that, let's go to why we're all here. Let's go to our topic of the day, our early running back rankings part 2. So today we're going to be going through our number 2 running backs, numbers 13 through 24, and this is where it gets a bit interesting, and this will definitely be fun to talk about once we have all the guys back. And we'll start off with our number 13 running back, which is Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, look, we all said that he was the top talent at running back probably going into the year last year. Didn't really translate in his first year, but really nobody on that Bengals offense really got going. It was a tough jump for him. The offense really stuttered. That whole team really stumbled throughout the season. No offensive line. Yes, I know Giovanni Bernard did more with less, but Giovanni Bernard is a veteran in this league. I expect Joe Mixon with a off-season off to recover, start putting some weight on, get some real tape study done, this bolster offensive line. Joe Mixon, he could really be that post-hype sleeper, and I'm really high on him for that reason. I'm excited to see where this guy can finish, because all of us here on the show thought he could finish as a number 1 running back. Obviously, it did not happen, but I still think that the talent and opportunity is there, especially with Jeremy Hill being gone. They've brought back all their weapons. I mean, obviously, A.J. Green's wasn't going anywhere, but they brought back Dez Bryant. Well, good God. Tyler Eifert. Different big red zone threat, and I think that they're not done. So I think Joe Mixon could be that serious post-hype sleeper who's going to fall in your drafts, but you know the upside is there. I think he could get it done. I mean, he's going to get more than 178 rushing attempts this year, and so that could translate to some pretty good production. We will see. I really like Joe Mixon. CJ and I have him at 14, right outside of our number 1s, and that's just because it's a pretty top-heavy talent class. I could easily move him up higher and be comfortable with it, even to where Jason has him at number 11. So number 14 on our list is Devonta Freeman. Yeah, you can make the argument that it's kind of a sin having him this low. This guy has been money for fantasy for the last couple of years. I mean, even last year, he's still, even in a down year, with the entire Falcons offense, he still had a pretty solid production. He broke 1,000 all-purpose yards, and he had 8 touchdowns, so combined. So, I mean, pretty solid production. I think another year with Steve Sarkisian, I don't think that he will ever be as good as Kyle Shanahan was for that Falcons offense, but I think that they definitely overcorrected. I talk about returning to the mean all the time here on the show. I think that the 2016 Falcons, the NFL's leading offense, I think that they kind of overreached there. I don't think that was the norm. I think that was a magical season. I think that most would agree. And I think that obviously what we saw last year in 2017 was a bit of a over return to the norm. So I really kind of like the opportunity for them to land somewhere in the middle. I think that they're going to be a very good offense this year, and the running game really didn't stumble too much. It was the passing game which kind of fell apart in this offense. So if the passing game gets going, that helps the running lanes. Devontae Freeman could get going again and end up being that running back one. I have him as a running back one, as the CJ, 11 and 12. Jason, I wish, was here to explain himself, though, because Jason is not a believer in Devonta Freeman. And I know this is because Jason doesn't like committees, but, you know, history kind of is proven that it works here. It's a good 1-2 punch, and Jason has him all the way down at 20, barely making it as a running back, too, almost as a flex-worthy guy, which I think is kind of insulting, though I can understand the thought process. I think that he is overcorrected for the fact that it's a committee here. Next guy on our list, though, we're all relatively low on, but this is where it gets kind of interesting. Oh, actually, no, I have these out of order. Sorry. Next guy on our list is Kenyon Drake. So Kenyon Drake is a guy who we all really, really like. We all think that he has the potential and the upside to be a monster in this league if given the keys to the offense. Problem is, he hasn't really gotten that opportunity yet, and we were really worried about all these statements coming out from Miami saying that they were going to try and add another big running back, trying to add more depth to the position and really try and make this go. And they added Frank Gore, which is concerning as far as red zone production goes, but Kenyon Drake, I think, has what it takes to really lock down this number one running back role, and Frank Gore will be that change of pace guy. Maybe he'll definitely be a guy who spells him. I think he'll work in kind of as a, obviously, red zone, trying to break that, third and goal type run. But I like Kenyon Drake's opportunity here, so I'm actually still pretty high on him. It's just until we know more, I can't move him up much higher. I have him at 16, and I am not the highest because actually Jason is the highest at 14. CJ all the way down to 22, a little bit more pessimistic, and I understand. This offense, they lost one of their main weapons. They still don't have a great quarterback. Ryan Tannehill coming back on injury is, of course, a question mark. I like their wide receiver weapons. They brought in Danny Amendola, but this team is downgraded across the board, so I can easily see a situation where this team is playing from behind a lot, and then the running game, as we know, is going to suffer in that instance. Kenyon Drake can catch the ball. He's done it, and he showed that he could do it last year. I mean, he had 32 receptions, and he didn't really get, obviously, much playing time until well over halfway into the season. So I like it. I like the upside. I think he has what it takes to finish as a running back one, but I feel much more comfortable taking a guy with kind of questions surrounding him as a running back two, as all three of us do. So the next guy on our list was his predecessor, Jay Ajayi, now in Philadelphia. So Jason and I have him at 18. CJ, no surprise, as the highest, but only one step above us at 17. Guys, Jay Ajayi, I know a lot of people are really down on him, and this is why he'll be a really good post-hype sleeper. Everyone was waiting for this magical season from him. A lot of people were really high on him based on what he had seen, or what we had seen. Those multiple 200-yard games that he had, 3 of them in 2016 season. Never got going, got traded midseason, didn't really pick up the Eagles' offense. The Eagles' offense was rolling by the time he got there, so they didn't really feel a need, I don't think, to really try and force him into the equation. Well, players are out the door, and Jay Ajayi has a full offseason to adjust to this offensive scheme. I like his opportunity to retain, or to obtain, I should say, the lead starting back role here, because his main competition is Wendell Smallwood and Corey Clement, which neither one of those really concern me as far as being a workhorse. I think Jay Ajayi will be that guy. So I like the upside, but we all think there's still question marks here. Health is always a concern with Jay Ajayi because we don't know when that knee is going to go. And that will affect his ability, obviously, to run and cut and all those important things. It's not like it's going to explode on him, but, the degenerative knee problem that he has. All teams knew about it when he was coming into the league. So having him down as a mid-running back, too, I think is a safety thing with a high upside. It's lowering your floor and expectations, but knowing that the ceiling could be much, much greater than this, as we've seen in years past. So I definitely like the opportunity that you have getting this guy probably later in your drafts. Next guy on our list is being brought up yet again by Jason Cabrera, Marshawn Lynch. Did he not learn from last year? So, okay. CJ and I both have him as a low-end running back too. I think we both agree that there's upside here, especially touchdown upside. But Jason has him up at 16, which I know is not a huge jump, but still, when you're jumping a bunch of spaces, that's committing to a guy. So Jason had obviously infamously Marshawn Lynch as a top 5 running back last year. I don't believe any of us were anywhere near that, but he was, and clearly that backfired. He learned from that by putting him down as a running back too, but still the highest on us, and the reasons I've already stated. So, I mean, he is a monster of a running back. He can absolutely have the ceiling of giving you an RB1, which none of us have him as. But again, he's 31. He's going to be 32 at the start of the season. He's back with a lot of carries on his career. Injuries are starting to become a problem. The offense that's coming in, a lot of people are arguing, it's not very creative, and the moves that they're making there are questionable at best. But I think it will be a relatively run-heavy offense, and I think the Raiders, as an organization, learned that they have to give Marshawn Lynch the ball, and when he gets going, the offense gets going. So I can see a world where he finishes relatively high, and he could be one of those post-hype sleepers. But the risk factor is what drives his draft volume or draft stock down. So, yeah, I as long as you take him in probably the mid RB2 range, I think you're okay with that. If you take him much higher than that, it's a confidence thing, and you're definitely drafting towards his ceiling. Number 19, Christian McCaffrey, a guy that really seems like he okay. I don't want to jumble this wrong. This is a guy who obviously has the keys to the offense at this point. I mean, Jonathan Stewart's gone. He was a number one running back, but we've seen that he's really not a between the tackles running back. He's not an amazing red zone goal line, push the line type back. He's an amazing dynamic pass catching, slashing back. Guys behind him basically fill that build as well, as far as I'm concerned, and Fozzie Whitaker and Cameron Artis-Payne. So I think that between all those guys, he doesn't have any real competition for touches. The problem is we all agree and believe that they're going to bring someone else in. It looks inevitable. The team has suggested as much, and we're all, we were joking at first, but the more time goes on and free agency has kind of come and gone, and they haven't signed any big name to their backfield, it looks like this might be a situation where they go and they spend a second year in a row a first-round pick on a running back. There are some amazing running back talents, especially ones who could be an amazing complement to what they have in Christian McCaffrey right now. So I would not rule it out. I think there's going to be plenty of top-tier running backs on the board when they draft. Maybe they trade back and grab one of these guys and they pick up some other stuff. But I expect them to either draft a running back relatively high in the draft this year, or once the draft is over, they're going to go out there and get themselves maybe an Adrian Peterson, one of those guys that once they get into the red zone, they can hand the ball to and try and power it across the line, unless they're trying to do a fake-out dump-off slants type throw to Christian McCaffrey. So touchdown upside is a concern here. His running down... He's going to get a lot of production in the passing game. His running game production is the big question mark with his opportunity here. I mean, he wasn't terrible last year. He averaged 3.7 yards per carry, but he only had 435 yards on the season, played all 16 games. A lot of that was Jonathan Stewart. He only had 117 rushing attempts, which is true, but that averages just over 7 rushing attempts a game. That's concerning if they're going to bring someone else and they stick true to this format, which is why it's really hard to get behind a guy that we just don't know. Now, I feel like I'm high on him at 15, but CJ has him right there with me at 15. Jason, though, Jason, I think, is buying into this being a serious committee once it's all said and done. Jason has him all the way down at 29. You heard that right, folks. 29. He has him as a... he has him concretely as a flex option running back. Is that outside the range of possibilities? No. But is a high-end RB2 outside the range of possibilities? I would say no as well, maybe even higher. So we will see. It all depends on what the team does moving forward. Now the name that I had out of place, actually no, it's not. Man, I'm really bad at this. We have Isaiah Crowell. Again, Jason being the highest person on him. He was the one that was really tooting the horn last year. Has him at 17. I'm at 20. Splitting the difference between Jason and CJ, who CJ has him all the way down at 24. I think the reason is obvious. It's a big committee. Isaiah Crowell, obviously no longer a Cleveland Brown, but a New York Jet. There's a lot of debate on how this backfield is going to play out. I mean, everyone, when Isaiah Crowell signed there, we all presumed, and I think appropriately so, that he was going to step in and be that first, second down back, maybe get the full workload. But they have 8 running backs on the roster right now, folks, including likes of Bilal Powell, Thomas Rawls, Elijah McGuire, and Jeremy Langford. Names that some of which are household, some of them were up and coming in fantasy circles. Then a couple other names behind them as well. So it's really hard to put a vote of confidence into a guy that is going to be competing just to be on the field. Now, I think that he was signed for a reason. He was given a decent contract, so I think he's going to get every opportunity, which is why I have him as a low-end RB2. CJ clearly agrees. Jason a little bit higher than us, having him as a mid-range RB2. So maybe Jason's playing to the upside, or he's just still buying into the talent of Isaiah Crowell. But I know he went from the Browns to the Jets, which some would argue has to be an upgrade because at least the Jets won some games last year. But I honestly, right now, February, good God, Griffin, April 13th, it's really late, guys, I apologize. April 13th, I don't think that there's any chance that the Jets offense rivals the Cleveland Browns offense. The Cleveland Browns are loaded with talent. Now, this is all player by player. The scheme, the offensive coordinating, the game planning, everything else where this team can fall apart is yet to be seen. But talent-wise across the board, I would take the wide receiver core in Cleveland over the wide receiver core in New York. I would take the offensive line in Cleveland over the offensive line with the Jets. I would take the tight ends in Cleveland over the ones in New York as far as offensive weapons. All these things, of course, helping the running game. Respect the passing game, helps the running game. Offensive line opens those channels, opens those lanes for the running back to run through. Now, him leaving and Carlos Hyde coming in, of course, I think that's good for Isaiah Crowell. But the point here being, of course, that if he couldn't get it done in Cleveland with a lot of this in place, obviously they've upgraded pretty drastically in some areas, but if they couldn't get it done, he couldn't get it done in Cleveland. How's he going to get it done in New York where there's way more running backs to compete with? So that's the concern. The reality is probably he's going to be the starter and it might not be contested, but I don't expect that to be the case, honestly. I think that he's going to be pushed for snaps, and I think they're going to have a true rotation in New York. So we'll know a lot more once we get into the preseason training camps, things of that nature. Right now, I have him as a low-end RB2, and I'm prepared to drop him down into the flex, really, bench waiver wire area. It all depends. The next guy is finally the one that I have way out of place for some reason. I think it's because Jason updated his rankings last second, so I didn't get a chance to fix it on the show doc. C.J. Anderson. Now, C.J. Anderson, we're all pretty low on, and that's because the Denver Broncos, they needed to do a lot of things this offseason, and they really didn't do anything. I know that they brought in Case Keenum, which to some is a large upgrade, to others it's a downgrade. I think universally you could say that it's not a huge boost, whether it is an upgrade or not. I think I stand fast in the fact that I think this is more or less a lateral motion, unless Case Keenum can regain the magic that he had last year, and if he can keep building on that, yeah, there's a lot of upside. He was better than what they had last year in Denver. But that being said, he's got two aging wide receivers here that are going to be distracting from him. Jamal Charles is gone, which is great, but they still have Devontae Booker there, who they like. D'Angelo Henderson is there, which I'm not too concerned about. Yes, C.J. Anderson could get a lot more touches, but injury is always a concern. This offense is going to suffer. They've traded away defensive pieces. I think the defense is going to take a step back. So this team is really a huge question mark right now, and I don't really know how Vance Joseph is going to right the ship this year and really kind of get this whole thing moving. Look, I'm on record for years now being a big C.J. Anderson fan. I was really tooting the horn for him, and he helped me win a number of championships with his stretch runs through the fantasy playoffs. And yeah, he broke 1,000 yards last year, had 4.1 yards per carry. Those are all good statistics on only 245 attempts only. The problem, 3 touchdowns. This is all rushing stats. So, and that's all the committee and the offense. So, look, C.J. Anderson, he's not outside of his prime. He is 27 years old, very much in his prime. It's just going to come down to how the team performs, which is the big question mark here, which is why I have him so low. I could see a world where C.J. Anderson finishes much higher as a fringe running back 2, running back 1 kind of range. Next guy on our list, we have Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams is a guy who we would love to have higher, but we just don't know That's the huge problem. Where is Jamal Williams with the Green Bay Packers? Because I know if you're like Jason and myself, we are both believers. Look, he had a higher draft stock. I think he flashed and looked amazing last season. I think the upside is there. But if you look at some depth chart sites and a lot of other analysts, they'll say that Aaron Jones is the starter. If you look other places, you see Ty Montgomery still penciled in as the starter. And I still think Ty Montgomery is going to be kind of a hybrid slot receiver for them. I think they're going to let Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones really be the true 1-2 running back punch here. But I could be wrong. Bottom line, they still have him in as a running back, and it's a very confused committee. So, I mean, all of us have Jamal Williams being the eventual starter, which is why we have him ranked higher than any of the other running backs that I just mentioned. But we all agree that this could be a dangerous scenario. Now, that's not necessarily reflected in our rankings. I feel like I'm arguably too high. I think if it's going to be a 1-2 punch, he could finish as the RB22, which is where I have him right now, with definite upside. CJ, I think a little bit more real if this is a three-headed committee at 27, so definitely as a flex guy. But Jason as a high-end running back, too, at number 15, so that is very intriguing to me. This is one of those times where I'd love for Jason to be here. And believe me, listeners, all of you out there, all my fanatics around the world, I know you're listening, obviously. I'm going to make him answer to this because I want to know. Because, yeah, I know the upside. If he is the three-down workhorse back and he can stay healthy in a Packers passing offense, yeah, I think that the upside is considerably higher than 15. But as of right now, what we know on April 13th, I can't recommend in good conscience having him as my 15th ranked running back. At 15, we're talking about a third-round pick, most likely. So I'm not putting a third-round pick in to Jamal Williams. I'm not doing it. Sorry. Next guy on our list, we're at the home stretch. At number 22, we have Lamar Miller. We're all pretty much in sync here. CJ at 21, I'm at 23, Jason at 26. He is our consensus 22. And the concern here is simply just that we don't know what's going to happen. He is the starter there, and I don't think that he's going to be contested as the starter in Houston. Obviously, the offense is going to get up and running better this year. Hopefully it gets up and running and stays running this year. Obviously, we saw some great flashes last year, but when Deshaun Watson went down, the offense really kind of stuttered. Lamar Miller struggled. Deonta Foreman obviously got hurt, which is why I think Lamar Miller, and I made this argument leading up to this point in the season, why I didn't think Lamar Miller was going to get cut, because that was a narrative that Deonta Foreman was going to get the workload. They were going to cut Lamar Miller, save the cap space, give Deonta Foreman the workload, and just maybe bring in some other younger players, save some cap space. Well, Foreman tore his Achilles late in the season, which is why I believe this wasn't going to happen. And I think Deshaun Watson back, he's going to open up a lot of passing lanes, dumping the ball to obviously all-star DeAndre Hopkins. Will Fuller, we saw, was borderline unstoppable while Watson was in. I don't think that is, I think it may be obtainable and repeatable even, but I don't think it's sustainable. I've said this for a very long time. It was an amazing 4 or 5 game stretch, but that is not, I think, going to be his average during the season. The teams have had an offseason to prep for Deshaun Watson's play, this offense, how to stop and counter this. Look, NFL defenses, they're always improving. They're always scouting. They're always getting better. So Deshaun Watson's going to have to take some serious steps, I think, if he's going to regain that magic he had last year before he went down. So all of this is reasons to be concerned about the running game as well, because they have to be explosive and be very good on offense to make a running back like Lamar Miller work. He's not one of those punishing north-south runners that's going to wear down the defense. He is a very shifty back out of the backfield. He can pass catch. He's really good in a zone blocking scheme. He's not going to be that give him the ball in the I formation and just make it happen all the time guy. He's not that guy. I love Lamar Miller. I've had him in many championship lineups. But we all have him as a low-end RB2, or Jason, who has him as a high-end flex option, because we just don't know. And Deonta Foreman will be back, and then it's going to be a committee, which is concerning. Upside's much higher, though. Next guy is Alex Collins, which CJ is the highest on at 19. I'm down at 26. I thought for sure I'd be the lowest, but Jason, I think intelligently, even lower than I, at 28. I only have Alex Collins this high because, as of right now, we don't know. The Baltimore Ravens, we saw all last year, and we talked about it throughout the season as we were going through our fantasy week-by-week starts, sits, add, drops. The Baltimore Ravens, my Baltimore Ravens, for whatever reason, would not commit to Alex Collins. They really liked giving him the ball in situations as a 1-2 down back. But man, this guy, something about him, the Ravens did not believe in him. Now, obviously, there's Javorius Buck Allen, who was right behind him, which is concerning. But the big name on the roster that is the guy who, by all accounts, they still believe in, they still want to be the starter. They're penciling in probably to be their starter. He's going to have to earn the position coming back from what happened last year. But Kenneth Dixon. So I know that we're getting hyped about a fourth round pick, but many people suspect that he is the best running back, best well-rounded back on the roster. I still think the Ravens are going to bring someone else in as well. So this entire cluttered situation is why I can't, in good conscience, invest anything much higher than a mid-round pick in Alex Collins. And odds are he's going to go way before that, because I think a lot of people are going to take him somewhere in CJ's range as a low-end running back too, which is going to see him go in the probably third, fourth round, and that's just too high of a price on a guy who may not be the starter, may not even be getting 100 touches this year. I think it'd be crazy for him not to, but that depends on what the team does and what their scheme is. Obviously, they've done a lot to kind of overhaul the offense and the offensive, not the offensive line, the wide receiver core, but I have to assume they're not done. So my Ravens, even as close to the team as I am, I still find them very much up in the air, and I won't be able to know more like you until probably after the draft. So at this point, I'm comfortable with where I have him. And then the final guy on our list, Jerick McKinnon. Now, I know there are all these reports that he is going to be the guy there. He's being paid as such. It's basically, I know he got this massive mega contract, making him one of the top 2 or 3 running backs in the league, and a lot of people are like, follow the money. They didn't pay him all that not to use him. But if you look at the stats, I discovered this on a show a couple shows ago. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. He's basically on a 1-year deal. When he plays out this year, they can cut him and save a boatload of money. So I think Jerick McKinnon is a great 3-down back that they brought in, and they're going to use him and maybe try some new things, or maybe it's just something they're going to use as they kind of develop and see what they have in San Francisco. I know we're always banging the table for Joe Williams, but I have a lot of faith in him. Matt Breida, I know the team likes a lot as well. Other backs on the roster as well that they like. I'm just really pessimistic because of what I always say. He was not good in Minnesota when given the opportunity. He was definitely not great, and now they're expecting him to be this elite running back in San Francisco. Now, granted, he's with Kyle Shanahan. If anyone can do it, it's him. They've already talked about how he's going to play the Devonta Freeman role in his offense, which we've seen is very productive, even in a committee. But I need to see it because I'm a believer in Kyle Shanahan. I'm not a believer in Jerick McKinnon. Do I think Jerick McKinnon's offense is going to be is going to fit better in Kyle Shanahan's than what he had in Minnesota? Yes, but how much better to justify where I'm seeing him go at times as a low-end running back 1? I can't get behind that. So I'm the lowest at 27, which might be too low. But to me, based on what I've seen, I think that he's not worth taking much higher than that at this point. You could easily make an argument that he is. Both the other guys have him as a low-end RB2, which I think is honestly where he's smartly going to be taken, and I could see a world where I raise him up to that point, especially if he looks good in preseason. But as of right now, I just can't get behind it, guys. I'm sorry. So to recap, we have number 13, Joe Mixon. Number 14, Devonta Freeman. Number 15, Kenyon Drake. Number 16, Jay Ajayi. Number 17, Marshawn Lynch. Number 18, Christian McCaffrey. Number 19, Isaiah Crowell. Number 20, C.J. Anderson. Number 21, Jamal Williams. Number 22, Lamar Miller. Number 23, Alex Collins. And number 24, Jerick McKinnon. And as I said all along, we're going to deep dive on this way more in depth once the guys are back, once we get past the draft and we start getting into more of our final rankings. And our rankings truly are never final. They are a living, breathing thing that are constantly changing day to day, week to week, and constantly updated on the website. All these rankings will be available once we get past the draft. Maybe a little bit beforehand, we might get these early rankings up, but of course, once we get our concrete post-draft rankings done, we're going to get those up on the website, and you guys will have access to them, so you can reference them all you want. Please make sure you guys do tune in on Tuesday, where, like I said, hopefully the guys will be back, and we'll be starting our early consensus wide receiver rankings. Those are always the fun ones. And remember, support the show on Patreon, subscribe wherever you're listening, on iTunes, Stitcher, the Apple Podcast service, Google Play, right here on YouTube, whatever the case may be. We're here every Tuesday and Friday. And normally, if this is your first time, thank you for sticking with us. You're probably gone, if I'm honest. But I hope you guys enjoyed. And the quality usually is much better than this. We'll have sound effects, we'll have music, we'll have better audio quality, we'll have other co-hosts in the not too distant future. You can follow the show, of course, on Twitter and interact with us at the FF Fanatics, or I am found on Twitter at GPalmerFFF. And so with that, I am out of here. I do want to give a quick shout out to Boomer, Michael, and Nick, who started a nice dialogue on YouTube. We always appreciate that. And as you probably noticed, we're always listening and we're always responding or giving thumbs up, liking. So if you guys want to interact with us, Twitter, YouTube, lots of opportunities. Good to see the people kind of coming out of their winter hibernation from fantasy football and kind of returning back to their prep work as we move forward as a group, as a team, as a family into 2018. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll be back on Tuesday. Take care, guys.